I deal with bad behavior, but then I flip it fast and I focus on the good kid. And I never discuss the bad behavior, ever. Why would I? You want them to feel good. If you discuss the bad behavior, you're focusing on it and you're going to make them feel bad.
How do I get my kids to listen in the car? They seem to be constantly fighting, yelling, tickling, teasing, or screaming at me for something.
If you've got kids who fight, there's usually one that's causing it. You got to figure out who's the instigator and who's the reactor.
How do you feel about part-time jobs for teenagers?
I think it's really important to teach a good work ethic and teach them how to earn some money.
Whenever he asks them to help or do a chore, they act like it's a major inconvenience. What do you recommend?
I got such a good one for that. Welcome to the Bratbusters Parenting Podcast. My name's Lisa Bunnage. I'm a parenting coach. I'm a mom. I'm also a grandmother.
And I'm Amy Bunnage, Lisa's daughter, and I handle the marketing and planning here at Bratbusters. While I don't have kids, each episode will dive into parenting topics and Lisa will answer your questions. Let's get started.
Hey, sweetie, we are doing part 7 of the 7-day series, and I don't know what it is because you do all the planning. What is it?
So the final part is about the payoff of calm leadership parenting from your perspective, and it's all about how you want to raise confident problem solvers.
The payoff. Oh, I'm worried about this one because I'm worried it'll go too long. Okay, well, let's just say why I do all this. One reason is I want you to raise happy kids with self-discipline who are confident and problem solvers, blah, blah, blah. Okay.
And all that crap.
Yeah, and all that crap. The other one is the number one thing that I'm really after whenever I'm talking about parenting is I want you to have fun. I want you to enjoy parenting. I want you to enjoy your kids. I want your kids to enjoy you. I want you to be happy. I know that sounds silly, but that's what I'm really after here. I want you to be happy. They don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be perfect, but I want you to find joy in parenting. And I want them to enjoy you, and I want you to enjoy them. I want you to be friends with your kids. I want you to wallow in parenting like I did. I loved it. It was the most fun time of my whole life. I loved it. And I want that for you too. So that's really what I'm thinking about. When I'm talking about discipline and everything, it's just to get to it's the means to the end, or the payoff, as you called it. So the payoff is that you enjoy your kids and your friends, and then they're adults and you're still close and you're friends and they trust you and they can tell you anything. You're a safe place to land and they're a safe place to land. It sounds sugary. I'm not that type, but that's really what I want for you.
I think that's really well said. I do have a few notes here. So you talk a lot about how, especially in the younger years, and of course you think that you can start calm leadership parenting as the kids get older, but you really talk about laying the foundation of your calm leadership.
The foundation. Are you talking about the toddler years?
Toddler, it can even be 3 to 12.
Yeah. The foundation, well, I mean, I don't talk about that a lot. I don't use that word foundation a lot. It comes up. But the base is that you're always trying to build that base. And there's going to be, like, the base is that you give respect to get it. You don't want obedient soldiers here. You want kids that make good choices. And you never want to, the base is that you're building kids that make their own choices. Okay. But if they make a good choice, then it's all great. If they make a poor choice, then you come in as the leader and you say, okay, so here's a consequence for that. The base is that you want them to make their own choices. You don't want to be telling them what to do. I think that's the most important thing. I want them to feel like they have control over their own lives. And I used to say to my kids, if you're good, life is good. If you're bad, life ain't so good. I'll make sure of it because that's my job. I'm your mom. So in other words, life is what you get back what you put into it. So I think that's the base, is I wanted my kids to realize it was all up to them. I didn't want to have to be nagging them all the time. I don't do that. So I wanted them to feel in control of their own lives. Did you?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. So that was my goal. Now, if you feel like you're in control of your own lives, then are you going to have resentment towards your parents?
I see what you mean. Yeah.
You don't, because you know that. And literally, I can remember one time my son forgot to do a chore or something, and he forgot to make his bed, and I made it for him, something like that. And he came home after school and he says, "Oh, Mom, sorry, I forgot to make my bed." And then he added, I can't remember how he worded it, but he added something like this: "Oh, sorry, you have to discipline me." He apologized. And I said, "Oh, forget it. It was just a bed." Like, whatever it was no big deal. But wow, like, he understood. He actually apologized for me having to give him a consequence. I thought, wow, forget it. It wasn't even anything big. Like, it was nothing.
You're like, I can't discipline you now.
Yeah. But I was shocked at that. And another time, he came at me with something else he'd forgotten. And then he says, "Oh, sorry, how about no TV tonight?" And I said, "That's too much. How about you just brush my hair for 5 minutes. He hated doing it, and I love having it done. So it was like no big deal. Like there was no animosity, there was no resentment or no anger there either way, because I was a leader and they felt like they had control over their own lives.
I think let's touch on the idea of how you approach getting kids to solve their own problems.
Well, if a kid comes to me with a problem, and I remember my mother doing this with me. I remember I was really little, and I remember some kid in the neighborhood or something wouldn't let me play some game. I was the youngest one in this area, so in the area we were. So I often was excluded from the older kid games, and I came in. I said, "Not fair." I said, "What should I do?" And my mom said, "Well, I don't know. You're a smart girl. You can figure it out." And she wouldn't give me any advice, but she was feeding me ideas. We'd talk about it. And then she'd say, "Well, I remember when I was a little kid, I tried this." And then she goes, "Maybe you could try that." And I thought, "Oh, wow, I just came up with a good idea." Like I truly thought I was solving all my own problems. She was feeding me ideas, but she never told me what to do. And I don't remember telling you kids what to do. I would just say, "Well," I said, "that is a problem. What do you got any ideas? Anything you could do?" And I remember I tried this when I was your age, or maybe this, but I never wanted to be a problem solver for my kids. I wanted them to have the confidence to solve their own problems. And therefore, I did not raise whiny children ever, because they understood if something was bugging them, they had control.
Now, I think what we'll do is we'll touch on a few teen topics. You don't have a specific teen boot camp, but I mean, whether you have a toddler right now and you're listening or you have a teenager, like they will eventually be teenagers at some point. So, do you want to touch on the tips for parenting teenagers first?
Yeah, it is my favorite age. And these are my top 5 tips for parenting teenagers. Number 1, you listen to understand and show empathy. You don't listen to gather information to lecture with, or they will shut you out. If they want your advice, they'll ask for it. They already know it anyway. And even that, if we tell a friend a problem, we don't want them to solve it. We just want them to listen, right? That's the idea here. So you just go radio silent, just listen. Okay. And you can show empathy. You can say, "That would be really frustrating." Yeah, I can see that. So that's how you address that. Number 2, you negotiate as much as possible with teenagers. It goes something like this: "Hey, from now on, I want your dirty dishes in the dishwasher before you leave the kitchen. What do you want from me?" So you're building reciprocity, mutual respect. See what they come up with. The more you do this, the more fair and reasonable they are. Okay. Initially, they might say something ridiculous like, "Well, get off my back and never bother me again," or something. But when you get this respect going, they don't talk to you like that. They just don't. Number 3, with teenagers, don't sweat the small stuff. If they do something stupid and it's not a big deal, I would have just said, "Well, that was stupid. Do you want to hear what I did when I was your age? Or do you want to hear what I did yesterday?" In other words, it's okay to not be perfect. It's okay to make mistakes, just like you did, just like you do. Okay. So you want to make it, you're a safe place to land. They can tell you anything because you're not judgmental. Number 4, don't leverage the good times to discuss the bad times. I'll often teach my clients how to connect with their teenagers, and then they'll want to discuss all the things that they did to disappoint them over the last 2 or 3 years. And then I'll say, "No, you never do that. You never bring it up." And every so often, one of them will, and then they can't figure out why that teenager, flips them the bird and leaves the room. So I know exactly what they did. They just insulted them again. When do you discuss the bad times with a teenager or any kid? Never. Why would you? What's the point? You deal with it in the moment, and then you move on. Never discuss the bad times. There's no point. It's just destructive. And number 5 is you can be a right fighter with a teenager, or you can be happy. This can be said with any adult relationship too. If you know you're right, or you're sure you're right, or you think you're right, and if they're arguing with you, let it go. Just say, "Oh, okay, let's just let it go." Or, "Let's talk about it later." Never say something like this: "Let's talk about it later when you've calmed down." That's an accelerator. So just say, let's just forget it. So you can be a right fighter, or you can be happy. By the way, a teenager, when they dig their heels in, and if you're not a leader yet, they will die on any hill. Even if they know they're wrong, they will still die on that hill. They will argue till the end of the earth. So just let it go. There's no point. You can be a right fighter, or you can be happy.
How do you approach it because I mean, I made lots of mistakes. Like, we all make mistakes. How do you approach it to not show judgment when your teenager makes a mistake?
Because I'm very quick to say, "Well, that was stupid." But then I'm very quick to tell a story about what I did that was stupid too. So I don't want them to think that the mistake was smart. It's okay to say you were stupid. So I'm very honest, wouldn't I? I would have said, "Well, that was pretty dumb. Do you want to hear what I did when I was in grade 8 or whatever?" So that's what I would have done. Would I have?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I always felt safe enough to come to you, even though I knew I had made a mistake. Almost like, I mean, I had to just like get it off my chest.
Well, would I often laugh?
You'd make it feel like the world was not going to end, which I think was the biggest thing is because when you're ruminating and then you like and then you're just getting your own thoughts and you just like you're like the world will literally end, and you made it feel like it wasn't going to.
So I didn't hear anything you said past the word ruminating. I don't think I've ever heard you use that word before, ruminating.
I can use words that you haven't heard of me using.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, I know. Well, I mean, because I'm very honest too. You never want to look like you're perfect because nobody is anyway. No, everyone's on to you. They all know you're not perfect. If you don't want to admit your own mistakes and laugh at yourself, then your kids aren't going to. So yeah, I was very quick to laugh at myself and laugh at the dumb things I did. So that's why I had no problem laughing at the dumb things you did. We all did. Everyone makes mistakes. That's human. That's normal. So I never expect perfection, but you were good kids. You never got in any trouble or anything. But yeah, we all make mistakes. Okay. And even if they did get in trouble, I would deal with it. But you know what? It doesn't make you a bad person just because you do something bad sometimes. And that's really important. I've worked with a lot of troubled teenagers and they had a really rotten self-image. And I said, just because you do stupid things doesn't make you stupid. So I always tried to connect with them and make them feel good about themselves. But I don't sugarcoat anything either. I go, yeah, that was stupid. Oh, well, you know what I did when I was your age? I'm very quick to make fun of myself and to point out my own flaws. And that makes it a lot safer for other people to do that with you, including your kids.
How do you feel about part-time jobs for teenagers?
Oh, very important. I made both well, they were anxious to do it anyway, but even if they weren't, I would have made them go out and get a part-time job, even if it's just babysitting or, I don't know, raking leaves for a neighbor. I think it's really important to teach a good work ethic and teach them how to earn some money. And they also had chores at home. But yeah, I made them go out and get a part-time job. And I was praying that both of them, it wasn't their job, I was hoping they'd both have to clean a public toilet just once, and they did. I like a good work ethic. I didn't want them to feel precious and that they're above anything. And they're both super hard workers. She works with me now, and believe me, she's I would call you a workaholic. Would you agree?
Oh, yes.
Absolute 100% workaholic. Would you call your brother a workaholic?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, they both are. I'm not, but they're both workaholics. And I think a lot of that, and it's not maybe the greatest thing to be, but it's a lot worse things than being a workaholic. They're extremely dedicated to work and very good work ethic. So I respect them for that. I think it's great. And I think I had something to do with that.
I know they say you shouldn't get some of your like self-worth or value from your work, but I do. I enjoy it.
You're very good at it. Very, very good at it.
And then I think something that really helped me growing up, and so I'm going to bring this up, is you really much emphasized always having a goal, but that our goals can change.
Yeah, I said you have to have a goal. And I want to know what it is. What are your goals in life? So I would ask them and I'd say, but it's not in cement. You can change it tomorrow. But I always wanted them to work towards something because it also builds, it's something to do with your brain. I don't quite understand all that stuff because I'm not a psychologist, but your mind loves a goal. It loves to have something to work toward. If you've got nothing to work toward, you don't tend to work. So I thought it was very important that they have goals. And I said, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to do? And that would change all the time. And I said, great, let's work toward that. And then I don't want to do that anymore. Let's work toward that. But then eventually, as they get older, they sort of find what works for them. You were always very good at marketing and figuring out marketing and what people were looking at. And she was very good online and now she's doing that for a living with me. So, but she had lots of other jobs where she wasn't doing that. But that was always something she had a talent for.
Yeah, it always shifted and changed. But I think that just having that, I just really appreciated that you allowed me to change your mind. And now this is a hard one, I think, for some parents, is that they have a preconceived notion of what their kids are going to do when they grow up.
Well, that's all selfishness. That's what you want for your kids. That's not for them. That's for you. So get out of your own head and encourage them to do what brings out the best in them, what they want to do. And it's got to be reasonable too. It's got to be like, don't just say, I want to be an astronaut or a star or something. It's got to be something reasonable, but work towards it. But yeah, a lot of parents do that. They say, well, I know by the way, what they're good at isn't always what they enjoy. I won't get into it, but I went through this with one of my kids. They were really good at something. And I thought, oh, wow, that's what they're going to end up doing. And they didn't enjoy it. So I thought, wow, isn't that interesting? I didn't know that. I thought if you had a natural talent for something that you would also love doing it. Turns out, no. So, I was quite surprised at that. That took me aback. So I thought, wow, how interesting. So yeah, you've got to encourage them to find who they are, not who you think they are or who you want them to be. That's selfishness. That's all that is.
Okay, should we get into the questions?
Oh, yeah.
So the first one is Tegan from Canada. My children are 9, 7, 6, and 3. I know I've messed up tremendously many times. I think I've got it wrong far more than I've got it right. Am I too late? My 9-year-old is almost 10, not saying I would give up anyways, but I just see her getting upset over little things and little mistakes, and I know it's because of how often I've reacted or how often have reacted. Can I still fix this?
Well, I do specialize in teenagers. And if it's not too late with a 16, 17, 18-year-old, it's harder. Believe me, it's harder. And there's more compromises, but it's never too late. You can always improve your relationship with your kid. And that's what this is all based on. It's all based on your leadership and your relationship with your kids. It's a mutual respectful relationship. You give respect to get it. So gosh, 9 years old, no, not too late at all. At all. You still got lots and lots of time.
I think maybe let's talk about how do you personally see parents move past parenting guilt?
You got to let it go. You just got to set it free because it's guilt and shame are two emotions that are never going to serve you in parenting or in life, really. You can learn from them, but move on. Just let them go. Think because there's nothing you can do about it anyway. What's the point in feeling guilty about everything you did wrong in the past? What's it going to do? If you've learned from it and you've identified that was wrong, then move forward in a positive way. I'm a parenting coach. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a counselor. I have no formal qualifications at all. I just work through my own experience. But therapists and counselors, they fix the past. Okay. They talk about the past and they go on about it. I don't do that. A coach moves forward. I say, yeah, you messed up in the past. So big deal. None of us are perfect. Now let's move forward. I'm solution based, not problem based. I don't discuss problems so much as I move forward with solutions. Okay. So that's what I suggest you do. Get your headspace out of that past and into the future.
Okay, the next one is Shayla from the United States. How do I get my kids to listen in the car? They seem to be constantly fighting, yelling, tickling, teasing, or screaming at me for something. It's gotten to be where I'm hesitant to plan and any long distance trips because I feel like I'm going to go crazy in the car. There weren't specifically ages, but do you want to say, let's say around 5 and 7?
Yeah, around there. So what I would do is I would use a behavior board and I would say no fighting in the car. And if they do fight, then you go to the behavior board when you get home and hand out a discipline. But if you've got kids who fight, there's usually one that's causing it. You got to figure out who's the instigator and who's the reactor. Often parents go after the reactor, the one who hits or throws something. Often they don't usually do that unless the other kid started something. You got to figure that out. So what I would do is I'd say no fighting. That could be your rule. Just no fighting in the car or anywhere else. And when they do fight, you say, I'll tell you what, we'll deal with this when we get home or we'll deal with it after dinner. You sit down. Let's say you got 2 kids, one's 5, one's 7. And you sit down, you do what I call the interview. And you just split the page in two, one kid at the top of one side and the other kid, their name at the top of the other. And you just say, okay, you've got 2 minutes to state your case. And you usually start with the younger one because it's harder for them not to interrupt than the older one usually. But anyway, so you just, let's say, okay, so you tell me exactly what happened. Well, he did this and you're not reacting at all. You're just writing it down. You're going, okay, and then what happened? And then what happened? And then what happened? You're calm as anything. 2 minutes is up, you go to the next kid. So what happened there? And then they'll go state their case. If the other one interrupts, say just, you'll get your turn. And then you look at the notes, take your time, go slow with this. You read it over and you say, now let me see now, who caused this? Who's to blame for all this? And if you're not sure, usually you'll know, by the way. And if you're not sure, do another interview. Say, I'll tell you what, I'll give you each 1 minute because I can't decide who caused all this problem. So then you go back and you can usually tell at that point, the kid who changes the story is usually the liar. The truth never changes. And then you do not have to explain yourself. You just say, I've decided you started it, so there's going to be a consequence for you. But also you finished it, you hit, so that's going to be a consequence for you too. But just remember next time that if one kid starts it, they're the only one that has to get in trouble. The reason why the other kid retaliates is they don't trust you to take care of business. That's why they fight. They don't trust you. Leaders do not have kids who fight. They just don't. I remember once I had a little group of kids I was working with in a classroom, and they were a handful. I was always handed the difficult kids to work with. And they were fighting. I heard a fight start to break out. Like they were starting to push each other in that. And they were, I don't know, grade 2 or 3. I can't remember. Anyway, and when I walked down towards the back of the room, they both sat back and looked at me. The fight stopped instantly. Do you know why? Someone asked me this later. They said, why would they do that? Because Lisa was turning up and Lisa will know what to do. That's what happens when you're a leader. They trust you to take care of business. So if you do this interview, it makes you look like you're taking care of business. Slow it down, drag it out. They'll stop fighting just to avoid the interview at some point. They're going to get so sick of these interviews. I've had clients who said this. They've actually heard their kids in the other room start to fight, and then one of them says, "Never stop the interview." They don't even want to go. They don't even want to fight anymore because they don't want to go through this interview. So yeah, it's a real, and it's giving them a voice. It's respectful, but you're dragging it out. Be as boring as possible.
It's boring but respectful.
Boring but respectful, yeah.
Okay, the next question is Saz from Australia. How do I teach my child to share and be polite without creating a pushover and soft adult who doesn't put themselves first?
I need an age for that one.
So let's say they're about 4.
Okay, they're 4. You can't teach them to share when they're little, but you can teach them how not to grab stuff. So it's not so much teaching them what to do, it's teaching them what not to do when they're really little. And as they get older, like 3 and 4, so if they're under that, it's more teaching them not to grab. But then you can just say, and then you said share and be polite. I don't quite understand that. They learn that with you. So if they want something, make them say please. And then if they have friends over, watch them and say, well, you were hogging the toy the whole time. If you have a friend over, you have to share. So just watch them and show them what to do and then explain it. But yeah, they will eventually learn. And then also if they are rude to a friend, when they have a friend over, I would say, I'll tell you what, there's going to be a consequence for that, because I didn't like the way you treated that kid. So just have a consequence.
I do see the fear from parents if you have a kid who is maybe more timid, more shy, of not wanting to create a pushover.
Well, I can't really get into that without a specific question, because there's so many different ways to look at that. So you got to push a really nice kid. I would say you kids were pushed around a little bit when you were young because you both were the passive. You weren't aggressive at all. And I remember, this is really weird. I'm going to tell this story anyway. I remember I didn't like getting in trouble. And I was 3 years old and I went to preschool for the first time. I might have been 4 actually when I look back on it. And I went to preschool. And I remember the teacher called my mom over to talk about me. And I remember this teacher smoked. This is back in the day, like this. This would have been 1964. And she was smoking as she's talking to my mom. I can still remember this. My parents didn't smoke, but I remember that. Isn't that funny? The teacher just smoking in the classroom. Anyway, and she was talking to my mom and she said, can you please, and I heard everything she was saying, can you please tell Lisa that I'm the teacher and she's not? And I couldn't figure out and I knew exactly, actually I knew exactly, but I couldn't figure out quite why she was telling my mom this. And I'll tell you what happened. What had happened was in the recess, like we went outside to play and they had a slide and all the kids were pushing and shoving and no one was getting a proper turn. It was the same 2 kids that were pushing all the other kids aside and running around just doing the slide. So I didn't like that. I don't like injustices. So I told the kids, you have to line up one behind the other. I never did get on that slide, but I was controlling it because the teacher was sitting off on the side smoking, not doing a darn thing. So she was mad that I took over but I had the kids lined up. So I could still remember that. Isn't that interesting? So I wasn't a pushover at all, but I never did get on that freaking slide. I was too busy getting all the kids lined up. So I was a bit of a pushover that way, I guess. Is that a bad thing?
I don't know, but I can understand parents not wanting to raise kids who are walked all over.
Yeah, but that's, how do I explain this? I needed a very specific example in how to deal with it. Like, I do. I just do, because there's so many different variables with that one. Are they really a pushover or are they just not aggressive? That's why. I wasn't aggressive. I wasn't a pushover, but I was not aggressive at all.
Okay, if you want to submit your very specific question, we have show notes. There's a link right there for parents to submit their questions.
Because there is a big difference between being a pushover and just not getting anything you want because you're not willing to be nasty and attract it. Like sometimes you got to get nasty to get what you want. And I just was never willing to do that. So was I pushover? Maybe a little bit.
Okay, we'll get into the next question. So, Bayan from the United States. How to navigate meltdowns triggered by my 5-year-old's perfectionism. It often shows up when she feels like she's failing at a task, like working on a puzzle and struggling to find the right pieces. So she turns to me for help or expects me to do it for her. Do I help her through it or say, okay, let's put the puzzle away until you're ready to try again?
Yeah, that's in the poor sportsmanship department. If it doesn't go your way, if you don't win, then you get mad. So I would just say, well, it doesn't matter. Let's just put it away. Or I'd say it doesn't matter if you get it right. Don't focus on getting it right. Focus on don't focus on the destination, focus on the journey. That's with game playing or anything. something, well, you've got to win. You got to get the puzzle done correctly. I just say, you're just supposed to be having fun here. So yeah, let's just put it away and we can play with something else. I would not feed that. I would not say, here's how you do it right. If they're melting down because it's not right, I wouldn't say, here's how you do it right. I would say, we're just supposed to be having fun. So I would put it away.
Okay. The next one is Monique from the United States. My boyfriend has 4 children, ages 11 to 16, and he is not yet home from work when they get home from school. I don't live there. And he comes home to a dirty dishes, spills wrappers on the counter, floor, etc. And no one takes responsibility. The house's rule is clean up after yourself, and they will all say it wasn't them. So he and I constantly have quite a bit of cleanup after work before we start making dinner. It's exhausting. Whenever he asks them to help or do a chore, they act like it's a major inconvenience. What do you recommend?
I got such a good one for that. I've got lots of different methods I would do, but just my gut reaction is this. I would do the interview. Boy, I would drag that one out. I would pick up a wrapper and I would say, now whose is this? And then I would I'll give you each 1 minute to discuss why it is yours or why it isn't yours.
This looks like a Twix. Well, I know that Susie doesn't like
Yeah,
caramel.
so let me see now. I would drag that out. I would make it hell for them on earth, just dragging it out. And I would use humor for sure, because they're teenagers. Okay, well, tween and a teenager. So I would just say, now we've got an empty glass. Now let me smell this. What does this smell like? So I would drag it out and I'd say, look, here's the thing. From now on, I want you both to pitch in and clean up. If you don't pitch in and clean up, you'll both get a consequence. But I would initially start with the interview. See how it goes. See what they say.
There are 4 children.
There's 4 of them. I'd still do the interview with all 4 of them. Yep, I would. But you said, between 11 and 16.
Yeah, so it'll take even longer, the
it'd
interview.
be even better. Yeah, it'd be even better. I'd make it like a whole night. That's a whole evening that I'd spend on that. Yeah, I just want to figure this out. Who's really making the mess? Who isn't? What'll happen is the one who isn't making the mess will be all in for the interview. The ones who are guilty don't want the interview. That's usually how it goes.
Okay, we have one final question. So Hannah from the United States. Hi, I know this seems silly, but I'm not a play person. Haha, my parents didn't play much, and I genuinely feel like I don't know how to play as an adult with a child. I'm a new listener to your podcast, but I've heard the comments about bonding on your child's level. Do you mind sharing some ways that you incorporated playing in your family's life and what games your children enjoyed? I have an almost 3-year-old for reference, only child. Thank you so much.
I think you could probably answer this.
What
Remember
did
when
we
were reading with my granddaughter and Auntie Amy was playing Miss Potato Head with her. And my granddaughter said, again? And my daughter looked horrified. She says, I just did it.
Well, I don't think this makes me look very good, so I think we should skip this one.
It was just so funny because she thought, well, I already played Miss Potato Head. It was all done. Whereas a little child wants to play on repeat.
By the third, again, I think that everyone who was there was getting a bigger kick out of the fact that my reactions.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, Grandma will play again. Grandma loves you. Repetition.
By the third time, I'm like, come on.
Yeah, I've already done that. How about we do something else? She wanted to play Miss Potato Head. Anyway,
I promise
really
I'm a
cute.
good aunt.
She is a wonderful aunt. I have a lot of different ideas and you can look up, you know what I would do? I would look up just online, look up fun activities to do with toddlers and that adults might like too. You'd be amazed what's out there. I would AI that. And you can find all sorts of stuff. Now, if you like music, look for something that's musical. If you like dancing, look for something that's dancing. Try to incorporate your own interests into that, okay? You do want to play in their world, but you can still make your interest their world. If you like knitting, you can use that. There's all sorts of crafts that kids can learn how to do. I was knitting and crocheting when I was like 3. I can remember that. Use a toilet roll and popsicle sticks, and you were making that chain out of yarn. So take your interests and think, how can I adapt this to a young child? So that's what I would recommend. I've actually got lots of clients who say, I've never played with a kid. I don't know how to connect with a kid. And so that's what we try and do. I had one client a while ago, and she was a brilliant storyteller, like really good at it. And I said, she goes, well, I've never played with kids, so I'm struggling to connect with my kid. And I said, well, what do you like? And she goes, it took us a while. And then she finally said, well, I do like making up stories that incorporate the person I'm talking to. And I said, well, can you tell me one about myself? All I wanted to do was curl up into her lap. It was the most soothing. She just had a lovely way about her. So that's how she ended up connecting with her kids, was through all these stories. And she ended up using humor, and her kids would add. And I said, get them to add to it. So you tell one line, then they get to tell, the never ending story. They get to add to it. So she brought them into the storytelling. And that was how she ended up connecting. So yeah, but look up AI or whatever, look online for ways to connect using your own interest, how to enter my kids' world using my music or my dance or my whatever it is that you like doing.
And as I got older, so would have been early teens, you and I were DDR champions.
DDR is Dance Dance Revolution, and it's those mats that light up and you're supposed to hit them on the beat. We were obsessed.
Oh,
we
loved
actually
it.
bought the mats because we used to go to the arcade. I was so obsessed with it. Here I was, a middle-aged mother. I dropped my kids off at school, go to the gym, and then I'd go to the arcade and practice on DDR. It was at the theater, the DDR, and no one else was there. It was just me. I loved it. And because I used to teach aerobics too, and it's kind of a little bit similar. Anyway, so yeah, and I went out and bought the mats, and we did that every morning for our workout for ages until the mats wore out.
Well, it worked out really great too, because I wasn't a super active kid. So for me, it was like, you saw that and you were like, this hits all of the boxes.
Well, because I was a very active mother, so I was very determined to get her into being fit. And she's at the gym every day like I am. And but I used to pull her. I remember when I used to go and pick her up from school, if I turned up with the dogs standing without a car, she'd go, oh no, that meant we were walking home. And we lived quite a distance from the school.
Maybe we can quickly tell the story about my first time walking on ice.
Okay. My kids were born and raised in Australia, and the first time we moved back to Canada because my mother was elderly and she wasn't, whatever. So we moved back to be around my mom. Anyway, my kids had never seen snow, or no, we went skiing in New Zealand because we lived in Australia. So we'd skied New Zealand a couple times, but they'd never lived around snow or anything. When we first moved to Canada and they saw frost in our backyard, they both ran out. They were like 15 and 10. They ran out to make a snowman. It was frost. Anyway, so they didn't know. And my son was more coordinated. He got used to walking in ice and snow. She didn't. She walked right across. She got out of my car. The first time we had an icy morning, she was walking to school. She walked like, it was like the Beatles, that the big, huge strides in that album that they had. Not the little steps you're supposed to take. Well, her feet went up in front of her and she landed on her tailbone. She got back in the car crying. And this silly Australian kid doesn't even know how to walk. And I told her, be careful. I will. Oh.
I pulled my groin. I remember that vividly. And I had to be out of school that day, and it hurt for weeks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So she just did. I told her, take tiny little steps. Mom, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that was it for the parenting questions. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, the payoffs. As I said, you want to have kids who have high self-esteem. My goal whenever I'm with kids is that they like themselves when they're with me. When you feel good, you do good. When you feel bad, you do good. You do bad. You know what I meant. Getting a little bit punchy here. Anyway, so yeah, I really want you to enjoy parenting though. You got to get this pesky discipline all sorted out, get a plan in place. Don't make it your focus, but you've got to do it. It's just part of it, and get that over and done with as fast as possible, and then connect with your kids. You want to be fun. You want to be engaging. It's all in their world. And also listen to the pool story. You can Google Bratbusters pool story. It sort of explains this, how I deal with bad behavior. I don't put up with anything. I deal with bad behavior, but then I flip it fast and I focus on the good kid. And I never discuss the bad behavior, ever. Why would I? You want them to feel good. If you discuss the bad behavior, you're focusing on it and you're going to make them feel bad. I don't want to do that. Okay, I think that's it.
That is. Thank you for joining us for this series.
Our 7-part series, 7 podcasts in 7 days. So I really appreciate you listening. If you've listened to them all, thanks so much for that. And we'll be back again on Tuesday or what?
If you haven't listened to them all, then no, thank you.
Yeah, then that's okay too. That's okay. We are very punchy. We've been doing a lot of filming today, so we're getting a little bit goofy. But anyway, we did really enjoy doing this. The reason why we did it is because there's a whole bunch of just basic stuff that is not organized in a whole system, which is what this is. It's all the basics of all the Bratbusters parenting, calm leadership stuff in 7 podcasts. That's why we did this. So if you want to know about Bratbusters, you've never heard of us before, we can just send you to this series. Thanks so much for joining us. Happy parenting.
Thanks for tuning in. If you're ready to dive deeper, check out bratbusters.com to learn more about the behavior board, parenting courses, and private one-on-one coaching with Lisa. If you've enjoyed the show so far, we'd love it if you could take a moment to follow, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback helps us reach more parents just like you. The information provided in this podcast is for general informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for professional advice. Lisa is a parenting coach, mom, and grandmother. She is not a licensed psychologist or counselor. Her services do not replace the care of psychologists or other healthcare professionals. For a full disclaimer, please visit bratbusters.com/disclaimer.